It's been a blockbuster week in the courts, from Mkhwanazi's bail bid to Liebenberg's psychological evaluation to a former defense minister's corruption trial. We've got you covered with the week's top stories and then some. My name's Graham Robenheimer, and this is News 24's Unread. We begin with this story, and suspended Deputy Ekurhuleni Metro Police Chief Julius Mkhwanazi will remain behind bars in connection with an alleged murder cover-up from 2022. This Friday, as Mkhwanazi and his co-accused bail applications rolled on, the Brakpan Magistrates Court heard evidence from a senior investigator with police watchdog IPID that several people involved with the 2022 events that led to Emmanuel Mbense's death have subsequently been killed after they were threatened not to speak out. About 4 years ago, a group of law enforcement officials raided, allegedly assaulting and torturing Mbense to death in connection with the stolen copper case that they were investigating at that time. Now, the prosecutor's charge sheet reads that the officials responsible then called in Mkhwanazi, who allegedly suggested Mbense's body be dumped in a Nigel dam. It's Mkhwanazi's fourth arrest in recent months, and he's since argued before the court that the prosecutor's challenge that he'd intimidate witnesses if he got bail is completely false. But IPID investigator Nomsa Masuku pointed to the deadly hit on witness D before the Madlanga Commission, that's Marius van der Merwe, among others, as well as Mkhwanazi's alleged influence on his co-accused's official statements as reasons enough to keep Mkhwanazi in a jail cell. And that's again where he'll stay this weekend until bail proceedings resume this coming Tuesday. Meanwhile, a diamond flogger, the Carrot King. He's said to be one of South Africa's most well-known conmen. Whatever you'd like to call him, one thing's for sure: Louis Liebenberg is fit to stand trial, according to a Gauteng court this week. As News 24's Alex Mitchley reports, a larger-than-life diamond trader turned alleged Ponzi scheme mastermind, Liebenberg has for the most part been languishing in a Pretoria remand prison cell. The Zuma backer faces charges of theft, money laundering and racketeering. As it's alleged, he and his wife Desiree duped several people into shelling out a collective 4 billion rand in failed diamond investments. Essentially, what you would call a Ponzi scheme. But a year ago to this month, the courts instructed Liebenberg to undergo a psychiatric evaluation after he went on a 30-minute tirade in the dock, accusing the magistrate of bias and complaining that he needs to eat white bread for his gout, among other things. Liebenberg tried and failed to appeal the court's decision, so he ended up at Westkopie's psychiatric facility in July for evaluation. That's all while the heavy earth-moving construction gear Liebenberg's mine operated out of Koinas in the Northern Cape was auctioned off. This week, the psychiatric evaluation report came back before the Bronkhorstspruit Magistrates Court, finding that just because he's uncooperative does not mean that Liebenberg has a mental health condition. The Liebenbergs and 7 other co-accused are set to go on trial this October. Staying in the courts, while she was the Speaker of Parliament, she's been in cabinet on 3 different occasions, but it's her former position as Defence Minister that's landed the ANC's Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula before the courts accused of corruption. But now, however, she's pushing to have this case scrapped completely. Prosecutors wrapped their evidence against the former minister early in August, chief among which is testimony by military contractor Nombasa Ndlovu, who alleged the former minister demanded bribes from her to the tune of about 2.1 million rand, and apparently she wanted more than double that amount. Mapisa-Nqakula denies this, pleading not guilty to a dozen counts of corruption and 1 of money laundering. But Ndlovu insists the cash tranches were physically delivered to various locations, including the ex-minister's Johannesburg home. And according to further testimony by an interior designer, the ANC veteran preferred paying for their family home upgrades in cash. But now that the state's case is closed, Mapisa-Nqakula's defense team argues that there's insufficient evidence of corruption and is now lodging a special application to try and get this whole case thrown out, which could leave her acquitted. In the meantime, Mapisa-Nqakula's defense team is pushing to get further information from the state, and that case is due to resume this coming Thursday. Moving to sport, and although they're synonymous with South African football, Kaizer Chiefs have not slotted a major title in just more than a decade. But if their early PSL performance this year is anything to go by, Amakosi look to be in form these days, at least ahead of their Sundowns showdown this weekend. Chiefs celebrated a 2-0 Josie home win over Sekhukhune United this week. That's back-to-back league wins since the Betway Premiership got underway. It's been more than welcome to the PSL log, 6 points for a side with 53 major trophies in its cabinet since the year 1970. Still, it's a small consolation for Amakosi after dropping out of the MTN 8 tournament they fought so hard to return to, losing a goal down to Golden Arrows. New French coach Fernando de Cruz vented his disappointment at the myriad chances but lack of goals, adding though that he's generally happy with the team's mindset. All of this said, of course, before their very first real test of the PSL season, a showdown with the African champs Mamelodi Sundowns this Saturday. Be sure to get the latest result from that game with News 24 Sport. Fun fact, did you know this? Kaizer Chiefs have a rather formidable Heritage Day match record that always seem to show up. Moving to this now, your weekly segment on wasteful public spending. And it's been revealed the National South African Police Service is spending 40 million rand every month leasing out 68 properties in Pretoria alone. That's because the SAPS has not been using its old HQ at the Telkom Towers for nearly 2 years now. To date, that mammoth building's monthly bill continues to tick over. As the Ground Up News team's Matthew Hirsch reports, the Public Works Ministry revealed to Parliament this week that the Telkom Tower's monthly upkeep costs, that's the bill that you and I have to fork out as taxpayers, comes to around 6.8 million rand. That's every month. But the police aren't even using the building bought back in 2016 for 700 million rand after vacating it in 2024 due to health and safety issues. And even when it did, the police only filled up one of the tower's 9 buildings, which Public Works called an investigation for. It's understood a further 1.6 billion rand would be needed just to refurbish the Telkom Towers. In the meantime, the SAPS spends more than 400 million rand every year leasing property just in the capital. Now, we understand that the Public Works and Police Ministers due to meet on this matter very soon, but we don't have further details for now. Moving to politics, and although we're quite far away from the ANC's next conference to replace Cyril Ramaphosa as party president, his brother-in-law continues to come up in conversations about succeeding him. A fresh poll now suggests Patrice Motsepe is a firm favourite amongst not only ANC supporters, but the public as well. The ANC called for restraint among some of its members earlier this year for launching a Motsepe for President campaign, which has since gone quiet, especially as the businessman himself has often denied interest in the position. Still, some seniors within the ANC, to News 24 editor Carol Payton's knowledge, believe Motsepe really does want the job. Now, a July poll authored by the Common Sense and the Social Research Foundation finds that 37% of the public think Motsepe would be a fitting replacement, whilst with ANC supporters specifically, Motsepe's rating stood at 43%. Fikile Mbalula garnered some 17% and Paul Mashatile got 10% among the public, whilst among ANC supporters, Mbalula got 23%, that's a lot more, whilst Mashatile got below 10%, that's a lot less. The July poll also put the ANC as a whole at 34% nationally, which the Social Research Foundation's chairperson, Frans Cronje, argues is reason enough to put Motsepe in charge. And in Joburg specifically, the DA is currently polling at 42%, and the ANC trailing significantly far behind at 18%. What do you think? I want to hear from you in the comments below. Take this poll with a giant pinch of salt, or is this the boost the ANC really needs in its dying days, according to some critics? And finally, sticking with fresh surveys, a recent UCT study now suggests that if they were guaranteed to be safe, nearly 2 out of every 3 commuting South Africans would opt to take the train instead. News 24's Hanli Nordia reports that although not a huge sample, more than 2,000 people were questioned and 100 others queried in depth. The main findings from the 2026 commuter report by the University of Cape Town are that most private car commuters, taxi and bus riders would switch to train travel almost instantly. In the same breath, however, the vast majority of all public transport users right now, including people who currently take the train, would like to have their own car. because that would mean they could move when they wanted to and dictate their own safety. Although PRASA is slowly reopening train lines and fixing up old stations, Stats SA reported that only 0.6% of all of the country's commuters used trains last year. Two more fun facts from that recent UCT study. Well, just more than 40% of those taking public transport say they often find themselves feeling unsafe, whilst the vast majority of those who were surveyed say they spend their time listening to music as opposed to podcasts or reading a book. Well, let's see if we can't change that UCT survey's outcomes by getting you to listen to Unread as well. Of course, you can find it on all of your various podcast streaming platforms. You may have seen this picture taken by one of our News 24 subscribers of a rather daring hyena drinking from a tap at a Kruger Park picnic spot. We're going to leave you with that at the end of this edition of News 24's Unread. I'll see you back next week, Thursday, bright and early, same time, same place. That's it from me, Graham Robenheimer, and cheers for now.